In saying that, we'll be moving on to our next session, which is with Microsoft. So Steve Nguyen we have here, who'll be talking about all things Viva Engage. Steve, bringing you to the main stage.
Thank you so much, Emily, and thank you, pardon me, Sam and Sophie, for sharing your story. It was great, very inspirational to hear your stories, and thanks so much for sharing with us. A lot for us to learn from. Hi, everyone. My name is Steve Nguyen. I am with the Yammer product and engineering team, the Yammer and Viva Engage product engineering team, and I'm here to share with you a little bit of our direction and where we're headed, give you some insight into some future capabilities that are coming right around the corner. I'll talk a little bit about timeline on some of those things as well. I'm going to spend about 20 to 25 minutes talking about some of those new capabilities. Then I want to leave some time for some open Q&A with you all. So buckle up. We've got a lot of things, a lot of exciting things to share. When we think about the journey that we've been on, really what we're trying to do is as Microsoft, create this really compelling employee experience platform. And when we think about what makes for a great employee experience, these are some of the components that when we talk with our customers, these are some of the things that we hear. As an employee, you want to feel like you can bring your best self to work. We heard a lot of examples of that from both Sam and Sophie and how they're trying to enable those things in their employees to much success. We want to be in a place where we're encouraged to build connections within our organization, to create that sense of belonging within the organization, that we can have a well-rounded sense of who our leaders are and what they represent, both personally and professionally. We want to know what our leaders' priorities and where, as an individual, as an employee in that organization, where we fit in that mission, where we contribute to those things. We want to know where to go to solve problems, right? We want to know that we can be trusted to share information and share knowledge. And overall, when all these things come together, that we can be energized and empowered to do really meaningful work within our organization. So these are some of the things we strive for. And hopefully you heard some of these things from Sam and Sophie, and we'll continue to hear throughout the next couple of days in this Yammer Festival, that these are some of the things that really are coming to light for many of our customers. For some of you, you may be familiar with the recent Work Trend Index that Microsoft commissioned. We did a Work Trend Index where we interviewed about 30,000 people. We surveyed 30,000 people across 30 different countries just to understand the state of the world of work today and where people are at. I'm not going to go through all the details of it today. You can do a search for the Microsoft Work Trend Index, or we can put a link here in the chat shortly for you to follow up if you want to dig into it and get more detail of it. But I do want to highlight a few things that that stand out, and it's sort of related to the previous slide. When some of the survey results that we got was that 54%, the second line here, the 54% of managers feel like leadership is out of touch with employees, that they feel like they don't have an ability to influence change within their organization. And the last one here, 43% of leaders say relationship building is the greatest challenge that they have when it comes to hybrid and remote work. We're all sort of decentralized in our physical location, so it's hard to make some of these connections, or what some of us refer to as weak tie connections, that we've missed out on from being able to be together in person. So I just want to highlight those two things and just keep them top of mind as we proceed forward with some of the things that we're thinking about and how to improve the overall employee experience for our customers. And when we think about that employee experience, Viva is really that platform by which we are trying to deliver this new and upgraded employee experience to many of you. And I'm not going to go through all of these things today. We certainly won't be able to do it justice in the time that we have today. But just rest assured, some of the bigger buckets that we're focused on are this ability to create connection with your organization, insight into productivity, and what's happening both from a productivity standpoint for yourself and for your teams, creating that sense of purpose through creating really clear goals and objectives, and then helping to create growth within your organization by connection to things like topics and also learning as well. But like I said, the big focus for us today is on this connection bucket, and even more specifically on Viva Engage. And so we've been on this journey. We want to be able to bring a lot of these things that you see here today, and a lot of the scenarios that we hear from our customers are around the things that I've talked about so far, about bringing your best self to work, creating that sense of belonging through community and connection, helping leaders be better engaged with their employees, and helping to empower people to find answers and solve problems within their organizations. And so we really want to take all of these things that Yammer has been so good at and bring it into our employee experience platform, which is Viva, and which is why we've started this initial rebranding of the experience inside of Teams to be called Viva Engage. And so really, at the end of the day, we're really all about those scenarios that we showed earlier. And part of what we're doing with Teams is with Teams and Viva, Teams being that vehicle by which we're delivering many of these experiences, whether it be Viva Learning or Viva Insights. You see, this is Viva Learning with this sort of background header and this Viva Insights with this top level navigation. And so what we aim to do with this initial introduction of Viva Engage within Teams is to take some of those design sensibilities that you see across some of the other Viva applications and create a very cohesive experience that resembles some of the other Viva experiences. And over time, you'll see some of these things come to the web and mobile experiences as well. I want to just sort of pivot from here and talk about some of the capabilities that we've recently introduced. One of those being Storyline. And hearing Sam talk about wanting to sort of improve and continue to engage Kohl's associates and Kohl's employees in new ways. I think both Storyline, and I'm going to talk about stories here, I think these are ways that we're seeing many of our customers start to think about additional ways that they can have their employees contribute to their networks and contribute to their organization. And Storyline was really born out of some discussions that we had with many of our customers during the pandemic, and specifically leaders wanting to be able to have a new way or different way to share to an audience. Sometimes leaders felt like communities didn't match the sensibility for which they wanted to be able to get a message out to the entire organization. They wanted to be able to create a followership, right? They would leverage the followership capabilities that Yammer provides and use some of those things. And so really the Storyline capability has resonated really well with leaders across many of our customers. And I'm going to share with you a couple of just quick examples of some of the scenarios that we've seen specifically here at Microsoft, and hopefully to also inspire you. But really, when you think about some of the ways that you might use Storyline, leaders are a great way to get started with that. And so when you think about what should you post on your Storyline, maybe you want to celebrate a work milestone or a promotion. One thing that we did recently here at Microsoft, we had our annual Give campaign, and this is one of our engineering leaders, Scott, and Scott shared on his Storyline that he'll match contributions that folks are making to the Give campaign. And you'll notice Scott has a modest amount of followers, but look at his post; it got over 8,000 views. And this is just based on the great distribution that Yammer has to be able to broadcast and get a message out like this to more and more people as the message picks up steam and picks up momentum. So this was a great way for us to use Storyline in a very philanthropic way. We also have folks like Jeff Teeper. Some of you might know Jeff. Jeff is one of our corporate vice presidents for both Teams and OneDrive and SharePoint. He does a weekly Fast Friday update. It's a quick video update, 5 minutes. What he's working on, customers he's meeting with, maybe he's preparing for a presentation, at a conference, and he'll give you some insight into those things. So it's a great view, a great media-centric view into what Jeff is up to as a leader. And Catherine's one of our CVPs for Fast Track, and she very frequently uses her Storyline to share top of mind. Again, she leverages video for a lot of this. She's sharing top of mind, what's happening within her Fast Track organization, things that she's doing from a DE and diversity and inclusion perspective. But she also shares a personal perspective. She'll share pictures of her daughters and they're returning to school, or she'll share pictures of her having lunch with her team. And so you start to get this really well-rounded view of who Catherine is as a leader of the business of Microsoft, but also as an individual. So as employees, we start to get this really holistic view of who our leaders are, both personally and professionally. And that's, as an employee, I find that really engaging. Now, stories is similarly an ability for people to share in a much more visual manner. Sophie talked about how posts that have video or photographs oftentimes get much more engagement. And certainly there's a demographic that exists within our workforce today that is much more used to either sharing or consuming content in a much more visual way. And so we really think stories will help to contribute towards that, being able to convey a message through a visual medium, or being able to comment and participate in a different way. So Viva Engage, the new Viva Engage experience is available to you all today. There's some stats in here that we pulled just to show you just how how many connections are being made across both Viva Engage and Yammer on a month-to-month basis. And that's really what this is all about, is people making connections, and in many cases making new connections. And that's the thing that we're seeing, especially since the pandemic. With Storyline, Storyline has only been out for about 6 weeks now, and we already have about 4.5 million monthly active users using Storyline today, and about 400,000 daily active Storyline users. So really good pickup on that. Excited to see the potential about that. I think it's attracting perhaps a different type of user than perhaps has used Yammer in the past. People that are sort of used to posting to LinkedIn or posting to Twitter, for example, I think have really been attracted to using Storyline because they can sort of connect with how Storyline post works. And this is just a quick snapshot of some of the things that we've recently released. All of these things are included in your existing Microsoft 365 licensing. I saw a question earlier on about licensing, but everything that you're seeing here so far, the new the updated Engage app, Storyline and Stories, and all of these capabilities here, these are all part of your existing Microsoft 365 investment. So whether you're E3 or E5, maybe some of you are on some of the academic or education SKUs, all of these things are included to you today. Now, going forward, let's talk about some of the things that we're working on. And again, as we apply the lens and think about where we're focused on, we continue to focus on these things, the things that you saw earlier: strengthening relationships, building strong communities, really creating strong leadership and employee connections, and helping your employees better get access to answers and knowledge within your organization. And I also want to be clear that the next phase of this presentation is really focused on some premium Viva capabilities. So if you're familiar with the overall Viva model, you know that in some cases there are capabilities that are included, like the things I just talked about. And there is also a set of premium Viva capabilities that are available as part of the overall Viva Suite license. So I want to be clear that everything that I'm going to show you here going forward is part of the Viva Suite license, which for most of you, I'm guessing, is going to be an additional license consideration. Let's first talk about some of the leadership scenarios and some of the things that we want to do to improve the ability for your leaders and employees to connect with one another. The first thing that we want to do is help you, number one, better identify your leaders. So the first thing you'll be able to do is identify specific leaders within your organization. Of course, that could be the CEO, could be CFO, could be any number of people that you identify as a leader in your organization. Once you've identified those leaders, you'll be able to identify an audience for those leaders, and you'll be able to use existing constructs that you have today, like AAD groups, or it could be a distribution list, to define, let's say, for your chief financial officer, you want to say all people in finance that or people that are in finance, is that the audience for that CFO. So you'll be able to set up that followership or that audience. We have a lot of our customers that do these sort of ask me anything type events, and I'm going to go into that a little bit with a little bit more depth, but also talk a little bit about some of the analytics that will go along with this. For our customers that do these Ask Me Anything events, or sometimes they call them Yam Jams, you can still do those today. By all means, please continue to do that. But with this new experience, we want to create a much more robust, perhaps a much more managed experience for the AMA. So one thing you'll notice straight away here is that with this AMA event, the leader or the delegates for the leader will be able to do some moderation. So as the questions are coming in, you can review them and determine if you want to publish those questions, or perhaps dismiss them if if you don't think it's appropriate for the context of this particular AMA. I'll scroll through and you can see a little bit of what the feed experience will look like. It'll feel very similar to the different types of feeds that we have within Yammer and Viva Engage. But one thing you'll notice here is that we'll incorporate an ability to upvote questions within the AMA experience. So if you want to boost or bring a question to light, you can vote on it and it'll bubble up higher in the feed. The other thing for many of you who are corp comms folks, after you do an AMA, typically you need to do some sort of summary or some sort of roll up and show your stakeholders, show your leader what happened during the event. So we want to provide a quick summary. What were the total views? How many questions were asked? We might look at sentiment as well and incorporate what was the sentiment of the AMA, but also provide you with some highlights. What were some of the top comments, top questions that came out of this? So straight away at the end of this event, you'll be able to provide some insights to your leaders about what happened during the AMA event. The next area, and I talked earlier about the leader identification and the audience identification. The other place that this will start to show up is in this leadership corner. And this will be important because, as you've identified those leaders, the benefit of this leadership corner is that when I come to this space as an employee in your organization, I'm going to see a very tailored view of who those leaders are. Remember back to the work trend index, we talked about how some folks felt like leaders were sort of out of touch with the rest of the organization, or in some cases you don't even know who your leaders are because you don't have that opportunity to walk the halls anymore and sort of bump into leaders. So this will be a great way for you to know who those leaders are based on where you sit within the organization, again, based on your definition of who those leaders are. And as those leaders are contributing and posting either maybe a story or to their storyline, or even posting across to any of their communities, we'll aggregate that content into this leadership corner page. So you see Bruno has been identified as a leader. Maybe this is an HR sort of HR focused leadership corner. So I see Bruno's storyline post here. Beth is the Chief Diversity Officer, and she's been identified as a leader here. So I see that post show up in my leadership corner. So again, the benefit here to leadership corner is that as an employee, I can see a very specific view of the leaders and understand what's top of mind for those leaders that are closest to me, and be able to have that two-way dialogue and two-way interaction with those leaders. Now, we want to also provide some level of analytics to help people better understand, what's happening around some of these scenarios. So we'll apply some level of personal analytics. So as an individual, you can start to see how your impact is showing up across the network. I can see some of the top conversations that I'm participating in. What are some of the top comments that are happening around the post that I'm in? Apologies, I'm going through this quickly just because I want to make sure I cover everything in the right amount of time here. But you'll also see a breakdown of where your participation is showing up. Is it in communities? Is it across storyline? So we'll provide you some data here. From an audience perspective, go back to that CFO example, a chief financial officer example. Now that CFO and that CFO's delegates will also be able to get a set of audience analytics, so specific just to that particular audience. They'll be able to see within that audience, what's the sentiment of the audience? Is it trending positive? Is it trending negative? What are some of those themes? And they can drill down and look into, let's say, work-life balance, and then be able to see some of the conversations associated with work-life balance. What's the audience engagement? So that audience that you defined, how well or how poorly are they engaging? The top conversations and sentiment around some of those specific conversations will show up here as well. And then you'll also see where some of those most active communities are within that particular segment or within that particular audience. So those are some of the things that we're focused on from a leadership connection standpoint. The next area that we're focused on is around campaigns, and we heard a little bit about this from Sam and Sophie as well. And we want to really improve and make the campaigns experience much more robust as well. So what you'll see here is a very dedicated campaign page. You'll be able to define various hashtags, and so you'll have a campaign management page where you'll be able to define these campaigns and see the campaigns that are happening across your organization. With a given campaign, you'll be able to track against a specific goal. Maybe you want to track and look at recognition or improve recognition within your organization. You want to track the number of praises. Maybe it's a philanthropic campaign like the one I mentioned earlier, and you want to track donations or volunteer hours. So being able to see what goals are connected to a campaign will be important here. This is what it'll look like for a person to post to the post towards the campaign. So if Lydia's praising Ashley for a job well done, and she's put hashtag above and beyond, she can post that, and that'll post to her storyline. It'll show up in the various feeds as well, but it'll also show up on this dedicated campaign page itself. So regardless of whether Lydia posted to her storyline like she did here, or if she posted it into a community, we'll aggregate all of those campaign posts into the singular view of the campaign, where you see the goal tracker, you see some of the executive sponsors who are some of the leaders that are sort of the ambassadors for this particular campaign as well. I can also follow this campaign, which will give me an opportunity to really spread the word and let other people know about this campaign. So I'll be able to put some visual indicators on my profile here, like a campaign banner or sash, and maybe a badge also on my profile. We want this to be viral after all, right? We want other people to know about this recognition campaign. So these will be great ways for you to really let other people know that this campaign is happening. And similar to the other areas, we'll provide specific for campaigns, some data about how the campaign is going, how many people are following the campaign, what the activity looks like around the campaign, top conversations, who are the people that are contributing most from a creator standpoint, where are the posts coming from? Are they coming from communities? Are they coming from storyline? And then a breakdown of the followers and some of the leaders and their participation in the campaign itself. Now, lastly, the area that we really want to help our customers with is around answers. And when we think about employee engagement, and you think about, especially many of us being remote, maybe you have a question, you don't know where to turn, or maybe you've asked a question and you haven't gotten a response to it yet. There can be nothing more unengaging than not being able to get that answer to your question when you might need it. And so really a big focus for us is really helping to connect people with knowledge, connect people with answers to their questions. And so this new answers platform, this new answers hub within Viva Engage really aims to do that. And this is also where we start to bring some of the connectivity across some of the other Viva modules into this experience as well, because with answers, we'll also have a very close tie-in with Viva topics as well, and I'll show you how that will show up. Well, certainly you see here, we see some topics here. These are very much driven by and attached to from Viva topics. But what you see here initially is a feed experience where you'll see a set of questions and answers based on topics that you're participating in or topics that you're interested in. One of the first jobs that we have here is to perhaps even prevent you from having to ask a question at all. So as I'm typing a question in here, we'll use some machine learning, some AI to do some semantic search for you to for us to be able to surface some questions and answers that might already exist. So I can take a deeper dive and look into some of these questions, and maybe I can already get the answer to my question and be able to move on with my day. Maybe you still need to go ahead and ask that question. We'll certainly give you that opportunity as well. And this is where we will connect it up with Viva topics as well. So when you attach a Viva topic to it, now we can sort of categorize the question. We also have some intelligence within Viva topics to know who some of the experts are around a given topic, which will then allow us to route that question to a set of experts and hopefully expedite the answering of that question as well.
Steve, sorry to just jump in for 1 second. Speaking of question and answers, I was wondering, could we ask a few quick questions? Just wondering if you have some more content that you want to share, or can I jump in and give you a few questions from the Q&A?
Yeah, do you mind if we just wrap this part up and we can then go to Q&A? Yep,
of course.
We're really close to the end. Thanks,
Amazing.
Emily.
Thanks, Steve.
Yep. And then with this here, we'll also bring some of similar capabilities that from Yammer around being able to upvote answers, being able to mark the best answer. And we'll also incorporate that ability to upvote questions here as well. And then with a system like this, we want to award people for their contributions here. And so we'll have an element of gamification or badging and rewarding people for their contributions here in this system. And similar to the other areas, we'll provide a set of analytics so that people can individually see what their contributions are in this answer space. So as an individual, I can see which questions I'm participating in and sort of the engagement around the questions that I'm participating in. in? What topics do I engage in most? I'll get a view of that as well. But then we'll also provide a, for our knowledge managers, an admin view of the overall answers system and sort of understanding the efficacy of what's happening overall in the system. How much time are we saving employees by having this system? What's the engagement look like across the questions and answers? What are some of the top viewed questions and answers? Who are the top badge earners, and what are the trending topics that are being contributing towards? So these are some of the things that we will be bringing soon to the Engage platform. So just to close out, and Emily, I'll be ready for questions here. All of these capabilities we plan on bringing in the first quarter of the next calendar year. In fact, we plan on delivering these at the end of January, the early part of February. So you can look forward to these being in general availability in the next month plus, 2 months or so. So hopefully that helps, and happy to answer some questions, Emily.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Steve. So we do have about 3 or 4 minutes for a few questions, but for some of the leftover Q&A, Steve will also be hanging around and can give you some answers in the comments as well. Steve, when it comes to communications with staff, how would you suggest explaining the difference between Viva Engage and Yammer?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I'll admit that we have put you all in a somewhat of a tough situation, and as you can imagine, especially at a big company like Microsoft, some of these branding conversations can be challenging. What I will say is that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. I think what you can expect is that we will continue to look and make sure that we are creating clarity for you and for your end users, so that whether it's called Yammer or whether it's called Viva Engage, we want to reconcile that. I'm not able to right now give you a specific time frame on when that's going to happen or what that's going to look like. But rest assured, we are thinking very deeply about what that rebranding should look like, and we want to do what's best for you all, and we're thinking through that today. So soon we'll have some better answers for you on that. So right now, I'd say in the very short term, I'd say just help your employees understand that Viva Engage is Yammer, number one. So everything that you're doing in Yammer accrues to the Viva Engage experience. So despite what it's called, whether it's called Viva Engage or Yammer, they essentially mean the same thing and represent the same thing, especially from a scenario perspective. All those things that I talked about earlier, those are the things that we're solving for, regardless of what this thing is called. So they are I'd say just tell your employees it's the same thing. We'll reconcile it and get it figured out.
Awesome. Thanks, Steve.
Thanks for your patience on that as we sort through all of it.
All good. So does everyone need to have the premium SKU, or just a few organizers that have access to set up the advanced Ask Me Anythings?
Yeah, in order for people to be able to participate and leverage those capabilities, those users will need to be licensed with the Viva Suite license and able to use those features, yes.
Right. And will the Viva Engage campaign feature enhance or be replaced by the soon-to-come Amplify?
That's something that we're working very closely with the Amplify team on. I think the way to think about Amplify, and you saw that slide that I shared earlier where Amplify and Engage was sort of in that connection bucket. Really where Amplify will be used is to sort of create the orchestration around, campaign is sort of a big word, but Amplify will be the orchestration of the content and the messaging that you might distribute across Outlook or email. You might distribute into Teams, but you might also use Yammer. And really the way we think about the Yammer and Viva Engage piece is that sometimes you need a social element around the campaign, but you don't always need it, right? Maybe you're rolling out some new technology or some HR system, right? You don't necessarily need a social campaign around that. But for maybe a sustainability campaign, you want to create some activity around that, and that's where you would use some of the campaign components that I talked about earlier. And that we're working with Amplify on how those things will be tied together.
Excellent. There are some more really great questions in the Q&A. So Steve, I'll leave that to you to look after those a bit after today's after your presentation today.